Hi again, it's me once more. Welcome to ASC Consultants online training. So today we will be looking at a brief overview of HACCP as well as the importance of HACCP in the food industry. I'm pretty sure you have heard of this term HACCP a couple of times. So today we'll just do an overview what it essentially means as well as what does the acronym mean. So HACCP stands for Analysis Critical Control Point. As I've said, the H stands for hazard, which is something that is potentially harmful. So it means that it's something that can cause harm. So under hazard, we normally have four categories that will be biological, chemical, physical, as well as allergens. So under biological, we are speaking about living organisms. Normally, they would cause harm in our food and sometimes be beneficial. So in food safety, though, we are looking at organisms that can cause disease or that can cause discomfort. The second example is chemicals. So under chemical, we are looking at those chemicals that if they were to get into the food, they will cause discomfort or they can cause poisoning. So the food can cause some illness in us. For an example, if there are pesticides in food and we consume that food, it will result in you falling sick, for an example, because you may be sensitive to the chemical, or it can cause some discomfort when we have consumed that particular food. The next example, it is physical hazard. So when we're talking about physical hazards, we're looking at the tangible items that if they were to get into the food, they will cause some injury, internal injury in our bodies. So here we can look at glass, for an example. If you eat food that is contaminated with broken glass, it can injure you internally. If you eat food has a nut or a bolt and you chew it, it can lead you having broken teeth, for an example. Then the last example, it is allergen. So allergens are those particular food normally a few people would be sensitive to. So when they consume those foods, they will develop an allergic reaction towards those foods. So example of such foods include milk, eggs, dairy products, soya, peanuts, shells, crustaceans, and all those types of food that a group of people may be allergic to. It is important to note that it doesn't affect everyone. It's only a few people who are allergic to those food items. Now, let's look at the examples of biological. We have got, for example, Salmonella, E. coli, Clostridium, Listeria, some viruses that produce toxins, and under chemical, we have cleaning chemicals, we've got sanitizers, pesticides, and maybe maintenance lubricants. Under physical, we have got glass, metal, wood, and also maybe stones that could be found in our food. And then under allergens, it is soya, eggs, crustaceans, fish, milk, nuts, peanuts, etc. It is internationally recognized system that is aimed at bonuses. So now let's analysis. What does analysis essentially mean? Now, so when we talk about analysis, we are looking at what is the likelihood that food will be contaminated, and if indeed that particular hazard is contaminated the food, what impact will it have on the consumer? So will the consumer be sick as a result of a hazard that it has been present? Will it have no impact, or can it be fatal? So under analysis, that's what we are looking at. And then we have got a term, critical control point. So what do you mean by critical step that is aimed at preventing the hazard from contaminating the food, or eliminating that particular hazard, or reducing it to an acceptable level? Overall, is an internally recognized system that reduces the risk of food safety hazards in food. So we have identified the term HACCP. Maybe an example of CCP here could be cooking. So because it removes a hazard in food, it removes pathogens that could be present in food. It plays a crucial role in ensuring that food is safe for human consumption. So as we've said, hazard means a danger to health. Analysis, we're looking at what is the impact of the hazard to consumers, and then CCP is a process step that will seek to either eliminate or reduce a significant hazard to prevent consumer becoming sick. For an example, it applies across the food chain, so it applies right from the farmer or the primary producer. It could either be a farmer that is growing maybe vegetables, crops, certain crops, either tree or ground crops. We look at perhaps their chemical application. Are they applying chemicals based on the manufacturer's instructions? Are they applying those chemicals within the acceptable range of chemicals as per the recommendations of the manufacturer? And then manufacturing, once you have received that particular product, how do you handle it in such a way that it does not result in it being contaminated? So we look at maybe temperature control, we look at the chemicals, the way that you handle chemicals in your facility, we look at food handlers' health. Do they pose any health to your product? Are they being trained? Do they know how to use the product and handle it? Are they familiar with how the chemicals in the facility, how they should be diluted? Then distribution, we are looking at the method of distribution. Are you distributing your product in such a manner that the products are protected from contamination? For an example, a covered truck, clean, that has no vermin or any type of contamination. The retailers also have a responsibility to play in order to ensure that once the product has come from the distributor, the manufacturer, as well as the farmer, they get in a condition that prevents contamination, so that the consumer, once they get the product, they will not be harmed or they will not get any foodborne illness. So now, why is it then important? Obviously, based on what we have said, it is important because it prevents injury to consumers, it prevents foodborne illnesses, it also assures consumers that the food that they've sourced or they've bought from this particular supplier is them to consume. As the study, they found that unsafe food causes more than 200 diseases ranging from diarrhea to cancer. So obviously, it does have a negative impact to health, especially if there are no controls implemented in food handling facility. It are foodborne illnesses or any illness that is introduced by these food hazards resulted in 2020, 2018, 2019, resulted in about 600 million people getting sick. So you can see that recent figures, it can in fact cause some harm to consumers. And in the worst case scenario, people get admitted to hospital and unfortunately die. So it is estimated that about 420,000 people die as a result of foodborne illness, which is a figure when you come to think of it, especially considering that the burden of disease, foodborne disease that is high amongst children under 5 years. So it is estimated that about 125,000 children die as a result of foodborne diseases. And an example that is closer to home is the 1,060 cases of listeriosis in 2017 and 2018, where about 216 people died as a result of a Listeria monocytogenes bacterium that was found in cold meat. So foodborne illnesses do kill people. It is important to implement necessary controls to protect consumers. We are going to be looking at the impact economically of HACCP. It is estimated that about 95 billion US dollars are lost due to the loss of productivity, people becoming sick as a result of foodborne illnesses. Either they stay at home or they go seek medical attention or they are admitted to hospital, and some die as a result of foodborne diseases. And the annual cost of treating foodborne illnesses is estimated to be 15 billion US dollars, which is quite a significant figure when you come to think of it. So now let's look at the history of HACCP. HACCP was developed in the early 1960s, late 1950s, where NASA, as well as a company called Pillsbury, developed food to be taken by astronauts. They wanted to ensure the food we're taking, the astronaut that is safe for them to consume in space, because there is no emergency room in space. So if you take food that is unsafe, you will get sick and you may end up dying. So they developed this proactive system to anticipate what problems could occur with certain foods, and then eliminated those foods that were high risk and only allowed them to take food that will ensure that they do not get sick easily, by looking at what risk does each food item pose to the consumer. Then in 1974, the FDA incorporated HACCP in the regulations due to the outbreak of Clostridium botulinum, which causes that can, of course, lead to paralysis if it worsens. So it's a very dangerous bacteria that can cause a very serious disease. Then in 1993, Codex Alimentarius provided the first definition of HACCP, which is basically what everyone has built on, and then later on they came up with the HACCP 12 stages, and subsequently the GMPs, good manufacturing practices that are implemented to prevent foodborne illnesses. In 2000, was such as the ISO 9001 standard, and then in mid 2000s, that is around 2004 2005, they published ISO 2005 standard, which was basically a management system standard that was aimed at the food industry, which enabled the food industry to know exactly what is it that they ought to do to prevent foodborne or to manage food safety systems. So there are many that were developed, like for example, BRC and FSSC 22000 later on. So basically, HACCP must not be seen in isolation. It forms part and parcels of many of the international standard, and is a bone of food safety in the food industry. In the next presentation, we are going to be looking at preliminary stages of HACCP. As we know, there are 12 stages of HACCP, and then the first 5 are known as the preliminary stages of HACCP. Thank you.